So we all should know what a Mandela effect is, right? Well, if you don't know, a Mandela effect is basically when you remember a certain thing about a TV show, movie, video game, a person, or literally anything, but it turns out to be completely different from what you remember. A great example of the Mandela effect is SpongeBob. SpongeBob has numerous Mandela effects surrounding him, and not just about the TV show, his movies, video games, and more, like this popular one in the first movie. When SpongeBob sings Goofy Goober, he has a peanut-shaped guitar, but a lot of people remember him having a white V-shaped guitar instead. Some even remember it being a purple V-shape. But I'm not going to be talking about SpongeBob Mandela effects today, but instead I'm going to be talking about Mandela effects in Nintendo games. Like SpongeBob, Nintendo games have their fair share of Mandela effects, and I'm going to get into some of them in this video. So now, without further ado, let's get on with it. Nintendo is literally packed with Mandela effects, so I thought why not just start out with the main man himself, Mario. First Mandela effect we're taking a look at is found all the way in the classic NES game Super Mario Bros., a game that needs no introduction. At the end of every castle except for the last, we all know the famous line. When we defeat Bowser, or at least the fake Bowser, instead of finding the princess, we find a Toad. This is where the Mandela effect comes in. What do you remember Toad saying? "Thank you Mario, but the princess is in another castle," or "Thank you Mario, but your princess is in another castle"? Well, if you remember either one of these, let me say that they're both wrong. Toad actually says, "Thank you Mario, but our princess is in another castle." It's pretty weird because even though I wasn't alive when this came out, I played this game so many times and watched numerous YouTube videos surrounding it, and I personally remember Toad saying, "The princess is in another castle." And a whole lot of others remember the same thing. A lot of other people also remember Toad saying, "Sorry Mario, but the princess is in another castle." What do you remember? Cause I was like so sure he says "the," but I looked it over and he says "our." Weird. Another Mandela effect surrounding the classic game is that a piranha plant can be found in one of these pipes right here in 1-1. Now we all know the iconic 1-1 in Super Mario Bros. But do you remember there being a piranha plant in one of these pipes? Honestly, with the amount of times I played this game, I don't remember there being any piranha plants there at all. But there's apparently a lot of people that do. So do you remember there being piranha plants? Tell me in the comments. Another Mandela effect surrounding Mario is found in Super Mario Kart. Released in 1992 for the SNES, this game is iconic for basically starting out the most popular game series in history. Were you alive when this game came out? If so, have you ever played it? And if you did, how many people do you remember playing it with you? This is where the Mandela effect comes in. If you remember playing Super Mario Kart with 4 players, that's literally impossible because Super Mario Kart only supports 2 players. A lot of people seem to remember this game supporting 4 players. Now, even though a bunch of people remember playing this game with 4 people, there might be a slight chance of mixing this game up with Mario Kart 64, which has 4-player multiplayer, or maybe just remembering things wrong, which is common for a Mandela effect, because there's no possible way to have 4 players on Super Mario Kart unless you hack. I personally can't speak on this subject considering I really never played Super Mario Kart like that to remember, and also I never had enough friends to play 4 players, so I would love to know what you remember down in the comments. And on the topic of Mario Kart, there's a pretty popular Mandela effect in Mario Kart 64, found in this Rainbow Road. Apparently a lot of people remember this course having no railings at all throughout the entire map, yet railings do show up in the game. Everyone that experiences this Mandela effect says the same thing. They always used to fall off on this track. So that being said, how can they always fall off the track if the railings are there to prevent them from falling? Now it's definitely not impossible to fall off from this track, as I have plenty of examples from that. So maybe they did fall off a lot, but it was due to items like a shell throwing them off. But I don't know, what do you remember? While I have played on this track multiple times, the times I did play, I always remembered there being railings. So this might be another case of mixing up games, as Super Mario Kart or Double Dash doesn't have any railings to their rainbow roads, but I digress. While we're on the topic of Nintendo 64, let's switch over to the iconic Super Mario 64, another game that needs no introduction. This one revolves around Mario himself. Sleeping. If you leave the game idle for a minute, Mario will end up falling asleep wherever he is. In his sleep, you'll start to hear him mumble about different Italian foods. Well, in this Mandela effect, a lot of people actually remember him mumbling, "Ah, the princess," in his sleep. This may not make sense considering all of his lines that come alive while he's sleeping are about food, but I can see why they remember him saying something like that. Considering that does sound like something he would say, considering I think he has said that before. Personally, I don't remember him saying this because, to be honest, I don't think I've ever purposely purposely left the game idle to hear this as a kid, but if you remember him saying that, don't hesitate to leave something in the comments. This next Mandela effect is found in New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Let me ask you a question. Do you remember using the Mega Mushroom that's found in this game? Well, if you do, then your memory may be messed up, because the Mega Mushroom is actually not found in the game at all. There's a large group of people that remember there being a Mega Mushroom in one of the levels in New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Me personally, I never actually played New Super Mario Bros. Wii, so I can't speak on this, but do you remember there being a Mega Mushroom in the game? If so, leave your memory down in the comments below, because it literally does not appear anywhere in the game unless you hack it. Now let's move on to some Mandela effects from the Zelda series. But let me just say, Zelda doesn't have as many Mandela effects as you think it would. So these are just things I dug up from like the deepest pits of the internet. First things first, let's talk about Breath of the Wild, a very successful game released in 2017 that also needs no introduction. But this Mandela effect doesn't have to do with the gameplay at all, but rather the title. What do you remember? Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wind? A lot of people seem to remember it being called Wind. Now they may be mixing it up with Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, because even I don't remember it being called Breath of the Wild, and I think I would, considering I watched videos on videos upon videos when it released, because it released the same day as the Switch, and even got the chance to play when I eventually bought it last year, but I don't know. Do you remember it being called Wind? Another Mandela effect, which is actually pretty popular among Zelda fans, is found in Ocarina of Time. In Ocarina of Time, there's a part in the game where you go fishing, and there's this rare fish that you can fish up called Hyrule Loach. But this is where the Mandela effect comes in. A lot of people seem to remember it being called the Hylian Loach. Now let me just say, in Twilight Princess, they actually officially changed the name to Hylian Loach, but a lot of people seem to have distinctive memories of calling it the Hylian Loach even before Twilight Princess came to the public. They even have memories of other people around them calling it the Hylian Loach before Twilight Princess came out too. Well, personally, while I have played Ocarina of Time, I never beat it and I never got to the fishing part anyways, so I can't say if I remember it being called the Hylian Loach in Ocarina of Time, but do you remember it being called the Hylian Loach? If you were alive when Ocarina of Time came out and played this game heavily, comment down below if you remember it. Now this next section I labeled Other, as this is literally just a bunch of Mandela effects related to Nintendo that I just put together. We all know that the Donkey Kong Country series is a pretty big series, especially for the DK fans. But with this second game in the series, there's a Mandela effect within the title. The title is officially called Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Kong Quest, which is a wordplay for conquest. But a lot of people seem to remember it being called Diddy Kong's Quest with the apostrophe in Kong. Now it's pretty easy to misremember something like this, considering it kinda does make more sense, but seeing how it's been officially revealed that it's a play on the word conquest, I can see why a lot of people remember it as Diddy Kong's Quest. But what do you remember? Another Mandela effect has to do with Wii Sports, yet another game that definitely needs no introduction. This Mandela effect has to do with baseball, and it's actually pretty insane to me that people actually remember something like this. Apparently, a lot of people remember that you can actually play with 4 players in baseball. Personally, I don't have any memory like this, and I really do think that this is a case of mixing up something with another game, because unlike the 4-player Super Mario Kart Mandela effect, I don't think a 4-player baseball game could work. They're definitely mixing it up with a game like bowling or tennis or something, but I don't know. Do you remember something like this? Because I genuinely have no idea how that's even possible. Though another popular Wii Sports Mandela effect has to do with the announcer, which I remember distinctively. We all know the iconic Wii Sports announcer, right? Well, do you remember when you would win a tennis match or something and the announcer would say, "You win"? But he actually doesn't say that at all. He would usually say, "The blank team wins," with blank being front, back, left, or right. But tons of people remember him saying, "You win," especially me. If there's anyone that knows more about Wii Sports than the average person should, it's me. And I distinctly remember him saying, "You win" after a tennis match. And trust me, I played this game so much as a kid, I should know. So this really blew my mind when I first heard about it. Do you remember him saying "you win"? Because it's literally engraved in my mind. This next Mandela effect is about a character named Gulliver in Animal Crossing New Horizons. See, Gulliver will usually wash up on the beach from time to time, and when waking him up, he'll tell you that he fell off the boat he and his buddies were on and broke his phone, or he calls it his communicator. He'll actually go find his communicator part so he can call up buddies and get him back to the ocean. He even gives you a nice reward after you've done it. But this Mandela effect has nothing to do with the dialogue, the mission, or anything like that. It has to do with Gulliver's appearance. Gulliver rocks a blue sailor outfit with a white scarf. A lot of people seem to remember Gulliver having a red scarf instead of a white scarf. Now this may just be another example of mixing up something with something else, as there is a similar character like Gulliver in the game named Gullivar, and he wears a red pirate suit, and he also asks us to do the same job as Gulliver. So our brains may have got him mixed up with Gullivar, but to be honest, I personally do remember him having a red scarf because I distinctly remember me thinking that that doesn't go right with his blue attire. I remember it so well, so it's actually kind of creepy that it's actually white because I was so sure it's red, but I digress. What do you remember? So I think that'll do it for this video. Hey, don't forget to leave your memories or maybe even some other Mandela effects that you've experienced in the comments. I do read the comments, by the way. Thanks for watching, and if you like what you saw, consider subscribing. I post a lot more like this. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.